Attorney Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and start putting your questions in the comments right now so that I can address those questions as they come in. But I have a good topic that I want to bring to you, and it is what you need to do before applying for VAWA. So now, nobody wants to be in the situation where they're applying for VAWA. And when you enter a marriage with a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, that certainly was not a part of your plan. And this also applies to parents as well as children. You don't anticipate that you're going to be in a situation where you're being mistreated and you have to apply for this. And this is where I come in. I come in to tell you that these things do happen. And, whenever you start to see things go south, if you start to see red flags in the relationship, it's also time to think about protecting your own interests. Doesn't mean that you're planning on something bad happening, but as an attorney, of course, I always help my clients and help individuals in consultations to see the other side of things, to see the possibilities, which may not be great sometimes. And so I want to tell you how to possibly protect yourself in the case that you do need to apply for VAWA. If you are going through a rough patch in your marriage, or you're being mistreated, or you're starting to see red flags in the marriage or in your relationship with your parent or your child, and you now know that you may not be able to depend on them to apply for permanent residence or to gain legal status in the United States, my first piece of advice here is document everything. Now, your statement, what you remember, the events in your marriage is going to be the most important thing. However, other documentary evidence, other pieces of evidence can also be very, very helpful to creating a credible application, because credibility is going to be essential here. Now, what kinds of things can you document? When we're applying for VAWA, the most important thing we have to show is that you're being mistreated. Now, it doesn't require you to now have physical injuries or for you to run and go file a police report. That's not what you need to do necessarily, because abuse is abuse. And if you're experiencing it, then we can put that in your statement to enable you to present that as evidence and to get VAWA. But there are other requirements along with showing that you have been mistreated, either verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically, even though physical is not required. And so those other requirements would be that you have resided with the individual, the U.S. citizen or legal permanent in your relationship. You don't necessarily that you've resided with them during the marriage, for example, but you do have to show that at some point, any point, you were living with that relative. Now, what does that mean, right? The next thing is, how long do you have to be living with them? There is no limit, right? We have had clients who have lived with their spouse for one day, but in that day, they experienced the mistreatment and they had to leave the situation as soon as possible. So it does not matter if you lived with your spouse, if you lived with your parent, if you lived with your citizen son or daughter for that time. So for one day, for 1 week, for 2 weeks, that still qualifies here. But what we do like to show is evidence of residency. Now, it may not always be possible, and we do have to shore up the application, make sure that you state this in your declaration. that you did live together. If you cannot prove this, because sometimes that does happen, you may not have access to evidence to show that you did reside together. But there are different types of documents that you can use to show. So, for example, mail going to the same address. So if you're at the same address right now, and if you don't have a joint lease or you don't have any way, other way, formal way to show that you're living in the same residence or that you have lived together, then collecting or taking pictures of important pieces of mail that was addressed to your spouse, your parent, or your child, whoever the person who's mistreating you is, take a picture of their mail, important mail. Usually you want to take picture of important mail that's going to be bank statements, it's going to be credit card statements, it's going to be maybe official utility bills. It's going to be letters, say, from the IRS showing that this individual, the U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, receives the mail at the same address as you. And then you will collect your own mail showing that you get important mail at the same address. Another is if you can go to the landlord or go to a relative, the individual who you're living with. If you have a roommate or if you're living with a relative, then you could, if it's safe, and it all depends on what works for you. And you need to make sure you're represented here, because remember, this is general information and it really depends on your situation. But another piece of advice here, or piece of information, is that you can possibly get your landlord, the individual you're living with, to verify that you do live with your spouse at that address. So that is one way. So a landlord verification form. And you can do these things before you even apply for VAWA. You can do this in preparation. If you know you want to leave the situation, you can start to prepare these documents before you leave the situation. Put them in a safe place so that when you have to get out, if you have to leave the situation, you have these ready to go so that you can have a head start at applying for VAWA, right? So the joint residency is going to be very important here. And then when it comes on to marriage, you still do have to show, just like the regular marriage-based green card, that you have a bona fide marriage. So you still have to show evidence, such as joint bank statements, evidence that you're living together or you did live together, evidence that you shared certain benefits or assets, such as maybe insurance, if you had a shared health insurance, if you had shared car insurance, if you filed your taxes together, then these would be important documents to have. So make sure that you work on having these documents in a safe place or gaining access to them. Another thing that's helpful but may not be required is evidence that your relative is a US citizen or legal permanent resident. So you're going to want to make sure that if you can have access to their passport, to take a picture of it or to take that information or a copy of it. You can scan those documents with your phone. If you can access the naturalization certificate or any other evidence showing that they are a US citizen or a legal permanent resident. While this is not absolutely required, and once again, you do have to take your in, safety in mind, you go breaking the law to try to access a spouse's information or a relative's information. So it's what is available to you. While you're trying to do this, make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to put you in trouble, right? Make sure that this is information that you can readily access without harming yourself or putting the liability on yourself. Another thing is, if you can't gain access to information that verifies that your spouse, your parent, or your citizen adult child is a U.S. citizen or legal, in this case, as the child has to be a U.S. citizen, but the parent and the spouse can be either a citizen or parent, then just know that this is information that the immigration service can verify upon request. So once our client verifies with us that they could not access this information, we go ahead and request that the USCIS verify this information for us in order to process the VAWA petition. Now, with us, there is what's called the good moral character aspect of this. And with this application, what we do is we organize the FBI background check for each of our clients so that they're able to show their good moral character. Now, it does not necessarily getting an FBI background check and presenting it to the immigration service doesn't mean you have to have a completely clean slate. Things happen, and you may have a record. That does not mean that you can't prove good moral character, but that's one way to show it. And if there are additional issues in your background, there are ways to get forgiveness if you need forgiveness, or it may not be an issue at all. So that is what I have to say about just setting yourself up for success in the VAWA process. Is a lesson from me, or take it from me, that sometimes I get calls from clients, and I go into consultations where the immigrant spouse, or the immigrant, mostly spouse, but in other cases I have had a parent who was thrown out by the parent, by their citizen child. They were thrown out of the house without notice. They were unable to access any of, sometimes in some cases, their own documents. So the best thing you can do is secure your own documents, and then start to gather the documents that I listed here that can be useful to support your case and to increase the likelihood that you would get an approval in your VAWA application. Right? So now I'm taking questions. I'm going to go ahead and go scroll through to answer questions. So start dropping those questions in the comments so that I can answer those questions. So I see here on YouTube. So I asked a question about the EAD card work authorization, and I do get it 6 months. It take So I'm not sure. It's a bit you're it's a bit broken. Now keep in mind, this question here, I'm not understanding it fully, but what I will say is that keep in mind that when I'm giving you timelines, I'm not your attorney. I don't know your case, and they are estimates. I don't control timelines here. I can only give you estimated timelines based on my experience. And so if I tell you the work permit takes 6 months to a year usually to get it, it doesn't mean that you're going to get your work permit or your green card on the 6 month mark or the 12-month mark, because at the end of the day, every case is different. If you have an attorney, make sure you talk to your attorney about timelines, or contact the USCIS if you have a pending case and you need to figure out what's going on with that. Right? But you can't take the information here and think it's going to apply to you, because I'm not your attorney and I haven't evaluated your case. And every case is different. So my lawyer only click that so go ahead and talk to your lawyer. Talk to your lawyer about, any specifics in the documentation. Make sure you do that earlier than later so that they're able to make any corrections if necessary. All right. Now, the question was concerning adding the children to the VAWA petition. And so, whenever you're submitting the VAWA petition, you do add your children to it if they do need that VAWA benefit as well. And in some cases, in some areas of the petition, it just asks for your children's information. So in this case, though, because I'm not your attorney and I haven't definitely have not prepared your petition, you need to talk to that attorney because the attorney is the one that can give you the explanation here. All right. So let me see any questions here. I'm gonna go on Instagram now. I'm scrolling through, so hang tight with me. So good morning. My questions not related to the topic you're discussing. Still ask. You can ask any immigration related questions. Absolutely. That's why I'm here. Once I finish with what I'm telling you, I go ahead and answer anything that's immigration related. So while I'm here right now, just go ahead and put your questions in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Otherwise, I am going to head out for the day. Okay, so how long after getting VAWA approved can my child come to the US? So after the VAWA is approved, you do have to wait until you get your permanent residence. So after your VAWA is approved, if the child is outside of the United States, if your child is in the United States, they get deferred action along with you, and then they're able to apply for adjustment of status. But when they're outside of the United States, they have to then come into the country once you become a permanent resident. So it will be processed in the country where the children are, and then they join you. How true is the new bill that's allegedly going to be passed in Florida? So you need to let me know which bill that is. Because there's a lot going on in Florida and a lot of things that we don't like. Go ahead, put your questions in the comments. I'm on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitch, and I'm on Instagram. So go ahead and put your questions in the comments. Can you file for VAWA when living in the same house with a person? Yes. Now, what I tell you is that you have to make sure that you are safe, right? That's your priority here. If you're not safe, make sure you prioritize your safety first, and then you can focus on the VAWA if you can't do both at the same time. Now, keep in mind that um, you can apply in this from the same household, but if you are going to apply, you need to make sure that you have someone or a dependable address that is not linked to your spouse or the person that you're living with, because that endangers you. If they know that you're applying for the VAWA, they can then turn around, they can retaliate against you, or they can contact USCIS. Even though USCIS is not supposed to take that information and use it against you, these are you really want to make the process as smooth as process with less stress, and then also you want to make sure that you don't endanger yourself. So this is what we do for our clients: is when we represent our clients in VAWA, our address serves as a safe address, which means we get everything, and then we correspond with our clients in a safe setting to make sure that they're able to get things like the work permit or the green card when they come. Another thing is, oftentimes when an individual is applying for VAWA, they are in a situation where they can't really trust a lot of people, because you have the spouse, they may have friends in common, or they may not have a lot of people outside of the relationship that they can depend on. And so that's another reason why it's best to make everything come to us, because then that ensures that no matter what the situation is, their living situation is, the immigration process will always go forward without the threat of something going to the wrong people or going to the wrong address. Okay, saying that we cannot be admitted to hospitals without knowing your status. So I don't know about. I haven't heard about that one. That one would be pretty outrageous because this, it really is a matter. I mean, it's not to say that they won't try to propose outrageous types of laws like this. But to say that one can't be admitted, I would have to look that up to see if that's even a thing. But to say that one cannot be admitted to a hospital without knowing their status would be outrageous because it would endanger a lot of individuals in regards to their health, especially in emergency situations. So the likelihood of that passing muster and getting far, surely, if even if it passes, it would surely be challenged, and it would probably be thrown out. But I don't know the specifics of that bill, and so it may be worded differently than you've stated here, and so I'd have to look at it. But I don't know anything about it, but you may have seen it, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in Florida right now. My daughter obtained her green card at age of 20. However, her father started to file for her at 17. Now she still obtains citizenship under his citizen status. So no, since she became a permanent resident, now if now it depends, because if she was under 18, but she entered the country, so she became a permanent resident when she was 20, then at that point, no, she would have to apply for her own citizenship. Because where she would derive citizenship is if she got permanent residence. So she entered the country under the age of 18, she would become a US citizen upon entering the country, by deriving it from her father. But because she got permanent residence, entered the country when she was 20, it would not be the case. She'd have to apply for her own. All right. Okay. Thanks for that link. I'll go ahead and check it out. All right. So I see here. So, hi, good day. My spouse is 54 and I'm 32. We're together 1 year and planning on getting married. Will the age gap affect our paperwork? It may. So, that's certainly a red flag. When they see such a large age difference, they're going to look closely at your application. They're going to, possibly schedule an interview and then ask you questions to figure out, is this real? They're going to ask questions along those lines. How did you meet? Try to figure out what you have in common. What are your plans for your marriage in the future? So it's not to say that it doesn't happen. It definitely happens, and you have couples that have been successful, but it can serve as a red flag. So after denied, my application can still eligible to file for VAWA. Absolutely. After a denial, you can definitely still qualify for VAWA, but it depends on what the reason for the denial was and what happened. What has happened. So go ahead and give us a call, schedule a consultation, and we can address that. The sooner you apply is the better, right? You don't want to sit on that one if you do have an opportunity to apply for VAWA. Um, so how long does a police clearance is a police clearance valid for? So right now, 2 years. Now, if you and your child have been abused and have a witness, do you have a stronger case? So absolutely, we do. Now, it's not a matter of stronger case, right? Because they do look at the evidence on a case by case basis. Witnesses can add to the credibility of the application because now you have a third party that's verifying that this has happened. So go ahead, give us a call, and we can definitely help you to put a solid application together, and for you to move forward. So give us a call and we can talk about it. All right. So, how can you contact me? You can go to the link in the profile, and the link is going to take you to a page with everything you need. There's a button to go to the website. The website is going to have the contact form, it's going to have the online chat, it's going to have the phone number. All three of those lead to the scheduling coordinators who will be more than happy to help you. The other is if you want to just schedule your appointment and you really don't need to call, you don't want to call, you can do that by going to the link in the profile on Instagram and on the in the description of the video on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Click on that link. You'll see a button there that says schedule your own appointment. Use that link to schedule your appointment. It will walk you through a very easy form to confirm your appointment and to get started right away. All right. So I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to head out. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll be back on Monday where I'll come and bring a topic to you, and you can come with your questions. Anything. You can ask me any immigration related questions, and I will be happy to answer those questions. You're welcome. Go ahead. You're welcome there on YouTube, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you. So go ahead and talk to your attorney. So if you already have an attorney, go ahead and talk to your attorney about your case to figure out why it may have been transferred. All right, have a good weekend. I will see you on Monday, where I'll go ahead and take a talk about a topic and you give me your questions. All right, have a good one. Bye.